Rolling hills, flowing rivers, lush green grass, and a giant robot with a flamethrower. Nothing says quaint British countryside quite like all of those things. Especially the robot with a flamethrower part, they're surprisingly common around here. As someone who grew up in the British countryside, Atomfall has encapsulated the vibe of a small rural community absolutely perfectly. But why does this setting work so well for a first-person survival horror game? You'd think lush scenes, sunshine, and a good old British pub wouldn't fit well into this genre. It's just too twee, right? Where's the grime? The dirt? The dark world with monsters lurking around every corner? Well, it's all there, it's just in a very charming British way. But that charm is why Atomfall's chosen setting works so well for its unique approach to the genre. It's the juxtaposition of it all, but also the fact Atomfall is based on real-world events. Of course, it's an alternate history, akin to Fallout New Vegas for example. We all know the Strip doesn't look like that, just like how Atomfall's version of rural northern England doesn't have giant flamethrower robots. Sorry, I lied about that at the start. Atomfall's world is set 5 years after the real-world Windscale fire that took place in 1957. Windscale was the worst nuclear disaster in the history of the United Kingdom. In this alternate history, you have to survive, scavenge, craft, barter, and fight your way through the northern countryside to solve the mystery of what really happened. Using this disaster as a basis for the world of Atomfall creates the perfect setting for a unique survival horror experience. The beautiful British countryside being ravaged by nuclear materials creates a familiar yet eerie feel. It's both comforting and haunting. Unlike other pieces of horror media set in the UK, take 28 Days Later for example, the lack of large cities and densely populated environments helps to really create a sense of being alone in the world. Atomfall's not set in the capital though, or even a city, it's in a small country town. This means that trusting or distrusting people becomes a key part of the survival aspect. With such a small community, you really have to either put your full trust in people or set out on your own path. It creates a sense of urgency in your decision making. It's just you, the horrors, and your intuition. Do you trust the little granny with a big hat? Or do you trust the creepy voice on the end of the phone? The British countryside also has a lot of unorthodox routes. This isn't a vast, flat urban landscape. This is rolling hills, public footpaths, and roads that weren't ever really meant for cars to drive down. This encourages exploration within the environment and forces you to put yourself in situations where you are left out in the open, or in a densely populated forest with bad lines of sight on potential enemies. Unlike large cities where you can hide in alleyways and look left and right to keep an eye out for enemies, in countryside woodlands you have to constantly be on high alert all around you. Is there an enemy behind that tree? Is someone sneaking up on you from behind? It creates a sense of tension and a nagging feeling that you're never quite safe. You might always have someone watching you from the shadows. Not only that, but exploring means you'll find yourself going through old tunnels and into nuclear bunkers where you never know what could be waiting for you on the other side. Will you find some ammo and healing items, or will you be faced with a feral? The uncertainty of rural environments helps build a tension in a way that larger cityscapes just wouldn't. Finally, nothing says horror quite like a cult, and nothing says a cult quite like a Wicker Man-esque community in the forest. Okay, so the Wicker Man movie is technically set in Scotland, but a lot of Wicker Man style worship and druidry originates from Celtic paganism, which was prevalent in England, especially in rural communities. This really helps bring that uniqueness to Atomfall's approach to survival horror. The return to more traditional styles of worship, almost a return to form, really drives home that this is not some grand sci-fi epic where people worship machines. This is pure English countryside horror, and this is one of the things that makes Atomfall so unique. But what do you think about Atomfall's setting? Why do you think its take on survival horror is so unique compared to other post-apocalyptic survival horror games? Let us know in the comments and stick with GamesRadar for news on the latest releases.